But one of the questions that has came up with LeBron in his career, if he did not play in Miami, would he still have been the player that we see him as now? Would he still be the same dominant LeBron James that we see today? Yes, he would have. LeBron would have been the same player that he is now, even if he never went to Miami. Because people are comparing career in terms of accolades and achievement with the player who is LeBron as he is right now. The accolades versus the talent. Would they have been the same today? Would we still be seeing LeBron at 38 years old playing like he's playing now if he never went through the swing of Miami? The answer is yes. Because without Miami, if he did not go to another competent team and escape the black hole that was the Cleveland Cavaliers at that point in time, where he was the only saving, and again, I love Big Z, respect Larry Hughes, all that. Marshall, respect him. Nowhere near that team should have ever been competitive. But out of the black hole of Cleveland, when he went to Miami, he played phenomenal. You saw the evolution. You saw the switch flip from, oh my gosh, he's already dominant, to, oh, he's hit his prime. He's in his prime now. But that wouldn't have changed if he didn't go to Miami. He still would have been just as dominant, still would have been running through the league, still would have played at his athletic peak for those 4 years. Undoubtedly, unquestionably. No doubt about it. That wouldn't have changed. And the player that he turned into now wouldn't have changed. It just would have been the accolades that would have changed. Because if he didn't go to Miami and went to another organization that was either A, just as competent as Cleveland, which would have been abysmal, or B, just as competent as Miami in terms of the makeup of the team around him, we either would have seen the same outcome or no rings, or maybe one ring. But that's it. Less hardware, but the same player would have still been the same player. And then going on from Cleveland to what we see LeBron now, we would have still seen LeBron play as LeBron right now. Oh, and you'll bring up, he didn't have the killer mentality. He didn't have the killer instinct. He didn't have the ability to turn up when necessary. Yes, he did. You're just being stupid and overlooking when he did. When he got drafted to Cleveland, won MVP, beat Detroit, who just won a title by himself, scored 25 points on them. Straight. Cooked them. The best defensive team in the league at that point in time. One of the best defensive teams in the era at that point in time. Cooked them completely. Right after they won a title. Looking to repeat. Right after that same team went through Kobe last year. Went through everybody. Beat him. By himself. Got to the finals by himself against the Spurs. Dominated against Orlando, though they lost the series. Dominated against Orlando, against, at that point in time, a top 5 player in the world. Arguably the second best player in the world in Dwight Howard. And against the best defensive player of that era, put up 35 and 10. Between 35 and 38 points. I'll put it at that scope. I don't got the numbers right in front. 35 to 38 points he put up on Dwight Howard. The best defensive player of that generation. Three-time defensive player of the year. Cooked the entire league. Was getting into the playoffs, carrying everything by himself, hitting game winners by himself, and then hit his stride even more, hit his prime when he got to Miami. He just had the pieces around him that worked. He was always unstoppable. He didn't have anybody to pass to. Now he's got people to pass to. What do you do? He's able to actually dish and be effective. He was always effective, but he'd be even more effective. Miami gave him the necessary pieces and the necessary organization that actually wants to win, to supply him with legitimate pieces to make it so that his play was successful. Hence why when he got to Miami, all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, it's unstoppable. Because it wasn't just that LeBron was teaming up. It was the fact that the entirety of that organization was now built to maximize what LeBron did. He had the killer mentality in Cleveland. And one of the worst instances of his career has been the 2011 finals. Never going to not hold that against him. Absolutely. But it wasn't because he didn't have the killer instinct. Don't be stupid. Don't be ignorant. Don't be blasé over the facts. LeBron James was deferring to Dwayne Wade because he didn't want to step on his toes. He didn't want to just try to rip the team away from Wade because he knew this was Wade's squad. This was Wade's spot. Wade had been the leader. Wade had gotten to a title with Shaq, had been the best player on that team. He's coming into his domain. Dwayne Wade talked to him and said, yo, get out of this. You're the best player on this team. Play like it. Then next season, up and did and dominated. Because he then just reverted back to the already known killer that he was in Cleveland. He was already a killer. He was already a dog. He was already had the killer instinct. He was already able to take over games. He was already single-handedly able to affect everything on the floor. Nothing changed except for the accolades attached to him. But the mentality never changed. He quelled that mentality because of it was Dwayne Wade's team. And when Dwayne gave him the green light to go for it, this is your squad now, they became unstoppable. One of the greatest teams in NBA history. So don't ever say that LeBron wouldn't have been LeBron without Miami. Yes, he would have. This same LeBron now would have still been LeBron if he never went to Cleveland, if he never went to Miami. If he never went to Miami. Still being able to put up 30 points a game. Still being the best playmaker in the NBA today. Outside of Nikola Jokic right now. The best playmaker in the NBA today. Still being a top 10, top 5 player. Still being the most important piece on his squad. Still being the all-time leading scorer. Still being one of the most complete players that we've ever seen in NBA history. At 38 years old, going to be 39. Still being LeBron James. Accolades may not have been the same if we didn't go to Miami. Completely fine. But that doesn't mean that the player wouldn't have been the player. LeBron still would have evolved. LeBron still would have adapted. LeBron still would have played probably the exact same way that we see him playing now at this very age right now if the trajectory of his career was different. He didn't go through Miami. Don't get caught up in, oh, he wouldn't have been a champion. Kevin Durant got those things as well when he went to Golden State. Why did he get a ring and an MVP when he went to Golden State? Because of the fact that when he went to Golden State, he was surrounded with talent that could actually get him where he wanted to go and make his production valid. Not that LeBron's production was ever invalid, but in terms of, okay, we do this, and I play like I play, we got a good shot at winning a championship. And it came to fruition when he went to Golden State. The play didn't change. He'd have changed up his play style. And he probably would have never changed up his play style if he never went to Golden State. What did Golden State add? A legitimate cast that could actually ball, that could get a title with his skill set. And what happened when they got to the position to win a title? They won. And he played the best out of all of them. The play style didn't change. It was just he was on a situation that actually made his play style impact to the point that they would win a chip. While when he was in OKC, his play style, in all honesty, still could have gotten him to a chip if he had stayed in OKC, but opted to leave. Again, still an incredibly weak move. We still hate it. Still don't look at those championships the same, nor his MVPs the same. On Golden State, that doesn't change the fact that, again, he won. But if he didn't win, if he never left, his play style still would have been the same. Kevin Durant would have still been Kevin Durant today. if he never won a chip, if he never went to Golden State, if he stayed in OKC, even if he went to Brooklyn, if everything else stayed the same except for him going to Golden State, he still would have been Kevin Durant that we see today. Same thing with LeBron. If he didn't go to Miami, he still would have been the same LeBron that we see today. That wouldn't have changed. The accolades due to you now having the necessary pieces to get you to a title and make it so that your impact on the floor actually results in a title, rather than being in vain due to you having a dominant game, a dominant series, yet your team just can't compete at all, like it was in Cleveland or like it was again in Cleveland in 2018 when the team couldn't compete. 2018 was essentially 07 all over again. LeBron by himself. No Kyrie. Not even an Isaiah Thomas. Kevin Love was a phenomenal, still nowhere close to the caliber of secondary star necessary to get to it to win the championship. Drugged them there. Ran into a juggernaut of a squad in the Spurs and then Golden State with Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green in 2018. Nobody was there to make that to even have a shot at winning. But the individual player was still the individual player. That does not change at all. And that's what LeBron is and still would have been today. Would have been dominant, still would have been the same player, would not have shrunk, not gotten the killer mentality. All these things that you want to say about, oh, the Heat made LeBron. No, LeBron made LeBron. And LeBron, if he didn't go to the Heat and it was just Bosh and Wade, they wouldn't have gotten to the finals. That would have been a second round exit. I guarantee it. I've always had that sentiment. Without LeBron on that Miami Heat, they don't go nowhere beyond the second round. And this is not bashing anybody's legacy or anything like that. Not bashing Wade or anything like that. Never. But I understand that the Heat culture is Heat culture. Heat culture is phenomenal. That we love it. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that they were, just because the Heat culture is so revered, they made a player who was already made when he already had those same attributes that you're saying that he lacked. He already had them in Cleveland. It was just the fact that he deferred to Wade his first year. And if he didn't defer to Wade, not because he didn't have it in him, but because of the fact that he didn't want to step on toes, his words, not mine. Wade's words, not mine. Didn't want to take over the team and be disrespectful. But once Wade instilled in him that, yo, this is your squad, you can't play like the second best player, like you're deferring to me. You got to play like you play, the best player in the world, the best player on this team. Okay, he just reverted back to what he did in 07. And what happened? Domination. Plain and simple. That's how it was. It isn't saying that Heat culture is just blasé. No, never. But what LeBron was when he got to Miami and dominated, he was already that in Cleveland. It just didn't amount to anything because the roster was so abysmally undermanned based on his production and how far they went. Nowhere close to actually be able to compete for a title. They shouldn't have gone to the finals. They shouldn't have been a one seed. They shouldn't have been in any way, shape, or form as good as they were. And they weren't when LeBron immediately left when they had the entire roster the same. It was him who was making that thing run. It was him who was making that ship fly. It was him who was the fuel for everything that they actually were able to accomplish. Without him, they were nothing. A bunch of bums and scrubs without LeBron. We understand this. But he was always this player. And would have evolved into the very player that we saw in Miami, and would have evolved even more to the player that we saw in Cleveland, and would have evolved again to the player that we see now in LA. Evolution wouldn't have changed. Just the hardware.